Hello viewers, this is the part 11 of the series named Mastering OEM, and in this tutorial we are going to learn about standard metric and metric extensions in OEM 13.5. In the last couple of tutorials, we covered a lot of things about OEM in a virtual learning environment using Oracle VirtualBox virtual machines, starting with installation of OEM 13.5 to configure monitoring and alerts. I suggest you watch the previous tutorials in this series to get a better understanding on today's topic. So today's main topic is going to be standard metric and metric extensions. Although I have explained what is an OEM metric in the previous tutorials, let me rephrase the concept one more time. So a metric is a statistics collected on a target in OEM. For example, tablespace usage percentage is a metric on a database target. A TNS ping response time is a metric on a listener target. An Aura 600 error is also a database metric. A CPU utilization percentage is a host metric, and there are many more. Each of the target types available in OEM, like the database, instance, listener, host, OEM agent, golden gate process, etc., have their predefined type of metric. To see what all are the metric associated with a target, we can go to all targets, then select any of the types available to us. Say we want to see an agent target and the associated metrics, then we have to select and then right click on the target, then go to monitoring in the menu, and from there go to metric and collection settings. In this page you will be able to see all the metric associated with this agent target. Similarly, if you go back to the previous page and select a database instance target, for example, say this ORCL1 is a database instance target, again right click on that, and then in the context menu go to the Oracle database, then monitoring, and under that metric and collection settings, you will be able to see in this page all the metric associated with this database target. So whatever we are able to see in this metric and collection settings page by default, these are called standard or default metric for the target. As in the previous tutorial, we discussed in detail about the standard metric, how we can change their warning and critical thresholds, collection frequency, etc. We will not go into detail about the standard metric in this tutorial, but we will go deeper into the metric extensions and focus more on the metric extensions. To go to the metric extensions page, we have to click on this enterprise menu first. Through that, we have to go to the monitoring, and under that we have to go to this metric extensions item. Right now in this page we are not able to see any metric extensions because we have not created any so far. So what is a metric extension? A metric extension is an extension to the standard metric, so you can go beyond the limits of a standard metric and collect some additional statistics as per your requirement on a particular target. For example, say you have a requirement that whenever a particular application user account is locked, you want to receive an alert. Or say when an export dump file is present in a particular file system in the server, you want to receive an alert so that you can avoid wasting your valuable file system space storing dump files. Or say whenever a backup job has failed, you want to receive an alert. These are just a few examples, but in actuality, there may be many more such situations when, as a DBA, you may want to get an alert. With the standard metric available to us by default, you cannot achieve this, and there the metric extensions become very handy. So let's create our first metric extension by taking our first example of application user lock issue. There may be many different reasons why a database account gets locked. It may be an explicit lock command by the DBA on that account, or due to invalid connection attempts with a wrong password, etc. But whatever may be the reason, an application account lock can be a disaster. So let's find out how we can get an alert on an application user account lock issue using a metric extension. I will take the system user in our database as our application user just for demonstration purpose. To create the metric extension, you can click on this create button, or the same create option is also available under this actions menu. So click on the actions menu, go to create option, under that metric extensions. Now In this screen, we have to specify what type of target the metric extension will be applicable to. So this will be our database instance. So select the database instance option there. We will not select any advanced properties as of now. Now the name of the metric extension, let's take this name, app account lock check. Here I am able to select the name of the metric extension as the browser is remembering it from when I tested it the last time, but in your case you have to actually type it in. And the display name, let's put the same as the metric extension name. Under adapter, we have a couple of options there: OS command single column, OS command multiple columns, and SQL. As we are going to use a SQL statement to extract the status of the system account, whether it's locked or unlocked, so our adapter will be here SQL. Then the description, if you want, you can put some description here. I am keeping it blank. Now under the collection schedule, data collection will be enabled, data upload will be yes. Under use of metric data, we will select alerting and historical trending. So historical trending is something, the information about the system account lock and unlock or the status will be kept in the repository history tables. Now upload interval will be 1 collections. Frequency, how frequently you want to collect that information about the status of the system. Say it will be every 15 minutes. Again, under the advanced section, we are not selecting anything. This is going to be a simple metric extension. Then click on the next button. Now in this page, we have to specify some basic properties like the SQL query that we are going to use. So before putting the SQL query here, I will write the SQL query using a Toad window by connecting to our candidate database so that we can test it there. So let's go to our Toad application, and I have already connected to our candidate database target, that is ORCL1, and the SQL statements I have already put there to save time. You'll be able to get all these SQL statements from the description of this video below. So I'm using here a SQL statement which says select username, account status, profile from DBA users where username equals to system. So this will give us the current status of the system account. That is, the account status is currently open and the profile is default for the system user. Next, we are going to write the actual query that we are going to use in the metric extension. So this query is nothing but select count star from DBA users where username equals to system and account status is not equal to open. So this query will return a number whenever the system account is not open. It means it may be locked timed or it may be locked. It may be anything, but it's not open. And that situation is our alerting situation. So whenever the system account is not open, it's going to return at least a non-zero number. So right now it's going to return 0 because we have seen that the system account status is open. And we will take this SQL statement and go back to our metric extensions window, and in the SQL query box we will simply paste this SQL query. And we can also use SQL query file here and put that SQL query in the SQL file, but in that case this file has to be available in all the database servers wherever you are going to deploy this metric extension. So it's better to have this SQL query directly written in this box. We are leaving all these advanced properties and connection properties with their default values. Then click on the next button. In this page, it's asking for defining a column. What is a column? A column in a metric extension is nothing but a variable which is going to accept the value returned by the SQL query that we defined in the previous step. As our SQL query is going to return a numerical value, so we have to define a column of data type number. To define the column, we will click on this add button, then go to new metric column here. And here we need to give a name to the column. Let's put a name like app account lock. And we'll put the same name as app account lock here in the display name field also. Then the type of the column will be data column. We have another option like key column, but here it is going to be data column. And the value will be number. There is no unit associated or other units. And in the category, we have a couple of options there, like what type of alert it will be. It's an availability type, it's a business KPI, or capacity, error, whatever. For our purpose, let's select the error as our category. Then we'll select transient equal to false, because if we set it true, the data will not be uploaded. Under the alert threshold section, we have to select a comparison operator. Let's select greater than symbol here. There is no warning associated, and it's going to be only critical whenever the value is a number which is greater than 0. Manually clearable alert, we'll keep it false, so that OEM will take care of clearing the alert automatically whenever the underlying situation is resolved. Like say the user or the system account is unlocked, then OEM will detect that unlocked situation and it will automatically clear the alert or the incident. Number of occurrences before alert, 1 is fine for us. Now the alert message. This is important. What message you want to be displayed in the alert that comes when this situation happens. So whatever default message it is giving here, that looks okay. The message will be something like the value of the column name is the value. The column name will be replaced with this particular value, that app account lock. So it will be something like the value of app account lock is that number that is returned by the query, where it is going to be 1 in our case. So we can say that whenever we receive an alert like the value of app account lock is 1, we can say that some situation happened where the application account got locked and we need to unlock it. Similarly, when the underlying situation is resolved, the alert message or the clear message will be something like alert for app account lock is cleared. So we are okay with all these settings. We don't have to specify anything under compute expression because there is no expressions to be defined here. Then click OK. And this is what we just defined. The name of the column is app account lock, and the situation is critical whenever the value is greater than 0. And click next. Under the credentials section, let's allow it to take the default credentials. We don't have to specify anything here. Then click next. In this phase, actually we can test our metric extension whether it's working as expected or not. But to do that, you have to temporarily assign a target database against which this metric extension will be executed. Let's click on this add button to add a candidate target database. It is already giving us the list of database targets available because our metric extension is applicable only on database instances. So let's take this database instance target named ORCL1 by selecting, and then this database instance is there to run our test against. When this line is selected, click on the run test button. It's going to return a 0 value, and yes, we can see that the value is 0, means we are good. If you want to test it to see whether it actually returns a non-zero value when the system account is actually locked, we can also test it. Let's go back to our Toad window, and then we will manually, by using the statement alter user system account lock, and we can see that the system user is locked currently. Now we'll go back to our test phase, and then we will run our test again, and this time it's going to be 1. Yes, we see it's a 1 here. Now we will go back to our database and unlock the account, and then we will click on the next button, and this is the final screen to review all our settings, and everything looks good. Then click on the finish button. Now we see that the metric extension has been successfully created, and we see in this phase we have one metric extension available, and the columns which are defining the metric extension can be seen here. It runs on targets. The name of the metric extension is app account lock check, and target type is database instance, and display name is the same, version 1. It's because this is the initial version, and if in the future we modify the metric extension, then newer versions or greater versions will be created, like 2, 3, 4, something like that. we have kept the description blank. Now deployed targets, it is 0 because this metric extension is not yet deployed on any targets. Monitoring template, 0 because this metric extension is not associated with any monitoring templates. And the status is editable because it is not yet deployed to any target, so you can freely edit or modify this metric extension. Now, before we can deploy this metric extension to any database targets, the first thing you have to do is to change its status to a deployable draft. So I clicked on the actions menu, and under that we will select save as deployable draft. And with a status like deployable draft, this metric extension is now deployable, but it is not yet published to the other administrators or users of our OEM system. So to change the status so that all the other administrators or users can also use this metric extension in their respective targets, if they have any, you need to publish this metric extension. To publish the metric extension, we will again click on this actions menu, and under that we see the publish metric extension. This option is now enabled, and we will click on the publish option, and now this metric extension is available to the other administrators of this OEM system. Now we are going to deploy this metric extension to our database target, and we will see it in action. To deploy the metric extension, when the metric extension is selected, we will press this deploy to targets button. In the next screen, we have the option to add targets on which we want to deploy this metric extension. So press this add button here, and because our OEM system has only 2 database instance targets, so it's giving us the 2 targets here in this list. Let's select the ORCL1 database here. Please note that we selected this database for testing purpose while we defined the metric extension, but here now we are going to actually deploy this metric extension on this database target. So once this is selected, click on the select button, and then we will click on this submit button, and we see that the deploy operation has been successfully submitted, but we don't know yet whether it was completed or not. And if we want to see this, if we refresh this page and the entry will be gone, it means the job has been completed, and we see that the job is gone, so it is completed. Now we'll go back to the metric extensions page by selecting the link here, metric extensions. It will take us to the previous screen, and we see that the deployed target is now 1, means it has been deployed to one target that we selected, that is the ORCL1 database. Click on this one link here, and it will give us the details about where it is actually deployed. We can see that it's ORCL1 database, and in this state, if you want to undeploy it, for example, it was done by a mistake, then you can also undeploy that metric extension from the select database targets. So it's showing us only one target here, but if we have multiple, you can control click each of the lines there, and then you can undeploy the metric extension. We will learn about this upgrade option later on. Now, as we deployed this metric extension on this ORCL1 database target, let's go to that database and see whether it's actually there in the metric and collection settings of the database or not. I just clicked on this link, that is ORCL1 database target, which will take us to the home page of the database. And once we are in the home page, I will go to the Oracle database menu here, then monitoring, then click on this metric and collection settings, and we should be able to see our metric extension. Yes, we see that this one is here, app account log check. This with the version 1 has been deployed, and also we can see the warning and critical thresholds, which is 0 here, and it will run every 15 minutes. Now to see this metric extension in action, I will reduce this every 15 minutes frequency to something like 1 minute, so that we don't have to wait for long 15 minutes for the alert to trigger. So I will click on this every 15 minutes link, and in the next page I will modify this 15 and put a 1 there, so that it's 1 minute, and then click on the continue button. It complains that the repeat interval is very low because it's 1 minute, but we are okay for this testing purpose. Then click on the continue button, and now we see that the frequency has reduced to 1 minute, but it is not yet saved, so you have to click on this OK button for the changes to take effect. And now metric and collection settings have been saved with the new settings. And now we are going to lock our system account, and we'll see whether we receive an alert or an incident is created or not for the system account lock issue. So I will use this command, alter user system account lock, and let's see the status. Yes, the system account is locked. And now we'll go back to the ORCL1 databases homepage, and under that Oracle database menu, under that monitoring, and let's go to the incident managers page to see whether one incident is triggered. Yes, we can see that at the top of the incidents page, we see the value of app account lock is 1. So we have received one incident here. Let's select that line, and then we see the related events. Click on the events tab here, and in the messages under the latest events, we will click on this link again. The value of app account lock is 1, and here we see that all the details about what has been done so far. So it says that the email sent to the email ID associated, and under the rule set and the rule which was used to send this alert. As I have already explained about the OEM rule sets and rules, how you can set up email, etc. in the previous tutorial, so I'll not go deeper into this. Now we can see that our system or the metric extension has worked perfectly, and it sent one alert to the email ID. Now let's go and check our email to see whether we have actually received one email alert. And yes, on the top of my inbox, I can see that I have received one email alert from OEM 13.5, and it says that the critical alert ORCL1 from this database target, the app account lock is 1. As I have already explained how you can set up the email alerting, incident rules and incident rule sets, etc. in the previous tutorial in detail, I'm not going to cover this again here. If you want, you can watch my previous tutorial, for which the link has been given in the description of this video below. Now that we have tested our SQL based metric extension, in the next we are going to create a metric extension which is a host based metric extension. Say you are exporting the data from a table to a dump file, and that dump file you put it in the /temp location or the file system. And once the dump file is created, say you FTP that file to a remote location so that you unnecessarily don't occupy the temp space. But for some reason, if say the FTP is not working and the dump file is still present, that is something you don't want, and you want to receive an alert if the dump file is still available in the temp location. So this is what we are going to achieve in this host-based metric extension. So let's go back to our OEM console, and then we will again go to Enterprise, Monitoring, Metric Extensions. This is our existing metric extension that we just created, and now we are going to create another metric extension which is going to be our host-based metric extension. So click on the Create button, then select Metric Extensions. And the target type host is selected by default. Now let's say name of the metric extension, say dump file exists. I'm able to select these names here because I was testing with this metric extension and the browser is remembering the names that I gave, so it's giving me the option to select. In your case, you will not have this option, so you have to write it down. So the display name will be the same as dump file exist. And the adapter, if you see under the adapter option, we have only two options now: OS command, multiple columns, and SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol. For us, it will be OS command, multiple columns. Even if it returns only one, we are good with that. Now the description, I am keeping it blank. Now under the data collection, we are selecting the enabled again. The data upload will be yes. Use of metric data, alerting and historical trending, upload interval 1 every 15 minutes. And now click on the next button. Now under this command box, we have to specify the shell that is going to be used for executing our command. In most of the cases, it's going to be bin sh. And in this script box, we are actually going to specify the OS or Unix command that we are going to use. Please note that this host-based metric extension is applicable only for Unix-based hosts. It doesn't mean that you cannot create a host-based metric extension for Windows or any other operating system, but for this example, I am only using Unix-based metric extension here. Before putting the OS command here, let's develop the OS command in the Unix prompt and validate whether it's working as expected or not. So I will establish one SSH session to our Unix server, which is hosting our database named ORCL1, and I will connect as Oracle user. Go to the temp location and let's create two example files here using the touch command. Say touch 1.dmp and 2.dmp. These are the two dump files. So lslrt star.dmp will give us these two example dump files that we created. Now, whether a dump file is there or not, to find out, we will simply modify our existing command. Say we have to specify the path here because the metric extension doesn't know which path it needs to look up for the dump files, so we have to specify the absolute path here. So /temp star.dmp, and any error, that is, if it is not able to find out any dump files there, it should not return an error, which usually we get in the Unix prompt, like file or directory does not exist. We will redirect that error to /dev null, and then using a pipe command, we will count the number of lines returned. It means if something is returned except the error, it is actually the number of files with the .dmp extension. So now this command should return a 2, and yes, we see it's a 2, means the dump file is there. And if the dump files are not there, it is going to return blank. Say let's modify this DMP to something else so that we can test the situation where the dump files are not there. Say let's put DMS there, and now we see it's a 0. So we are good with our OS command to use in our metric extension. So the actual command is going to be lslrt /tmp/star.dmp space 2 to redirect the error message to dev null pipe wc minus l, which is going to return the number of lines. And if there is no dump file, it is going to return 0. And if there is any dump file present in the temp location, it is going to give us the number of files. Let's copy this command, and then we will go back to our OEM console in the metric extension page, and we will click on this pencil button to write the script. In the file contents box, we will simply put the command that we used and then click on the OK button. Now our script has been associated with the metric extension, and we are not passing any arguments. There is no extra delimiters or starts with. Also, we are not using any start with command here. And then similarly, we are not specifying any advanced properties or not uploading any custom files. So we are leaving it all as default. Click on the next button. And here we have to again specify one column which is going to actually accept the value returned by the OS command. As our OS command is returning a numerical value, so we are going to define a numerical column here. Click on this add button, then select the new metric column option here, and in this metric extension, say we are going to use the dump file count as the name of the column. Display name will be the same. Now it's going to be data column. Then the value type will be number. No unit needs to be associated. The category will be, say, error again. And then transient, under that we'll select the false option. And in the comparison operator, we will put something like, say, when it is greater than 1, then it's a warning situation, and when it is greater than 2, then it's a critical situation. Say we are okay with one dump file to be available in the location, but we cannot accept 2 dump files to be there or more, then it's a critical situation. So 1 as warning and 2 as critical. Now manually clearable alert, this will be false again. Number of occurrences before alert 1, we are fine with that. And the value of, again, this column name will be replaced with the dump file count. So it will tell us the value of dump file count is the value which is returned by the OS command will be replaced here. And this message works exactly what we expect. And similarly, the clear message alert for dump file count is cleared. So this is also good for us. And we are not putting anything under the compute expression options. Then click on the OK button. Now this column has been successfully mapped or created. Click on the next button. And we are going to use the default credentials. Click on the next button. And we need to test the metric extension against any of our targets. Say we want to test it against both the database host targets here. Click on the add button. Then say we are going to select both these host targets. So we'll do a control click on both the lines and then click on the select button. And now we are going to run the test. So we should be getting a 2 for this VM Linux 1. Yes, we see it's 2 because there are 2 dump files we created. And for this particular host admin server, we get a 0 because there is no dump file present in the temp location. And then click on the next button and click on finish. Now our second host based metric extension is created. Now we'll select the line or the metric extension and change the status to save as deployable draft under the actions menu. And then we are going to publish this metric extension so that it is available to the other administrators of this OEM system. So click on the actions menu again, then click on the publish metric extension. Now this metric extension has been published. Now to deploy this metric extension, we have to follow the same approach, like select the metric extension, then click on the deploy to targets. And in the next page, we are going to add the targets, that is the host targets on which this metric extension will be deployed. And click on the select button and then submit. A job will be submitted and it will take just like a couple of seconds. We'll refresh the page and there should be no entries here. Yes, they are gone, means they are deployed. Now go back to the metric extensions page, and now we can see that the dump file exists. This particular metric extension has been deployed on 2 targets. Now let's go to our target where this metric extension was deployed, and we'll see whether the metric and collection settings have been updated with the deployed metric extension. I clicked on the host link so that it takes us to the home page of the database host named VM Linux 1. And once the database home page is displayed, we'll go to the host menu, under that monitoring, and under that metric and collection settings for the host target. And we see that at the top itself, we see that dump file exists version 1. This particular metric extension has been deployed to run every 15 minutes. Now if we want, we can test it. Just need to reduce this 15 minutes so that we don't have to wait for 15 minutes. I will simply make it 1 minute. Then click on the continue button. It complains we are okay. Then click OK to save the settings, and the settings have been saved. And now we'll go back to the host menu again for the target, and under that monitoring, and we'll go to the incident managers, and we should be able to see an incident or an event created. As it is not by default displayed under all open incidents, let's click on the other sections to see. Yes, we see it under the event without incidents. So under events without incidents, we are able to see that the event is created here with the value of dump file count is 2 for this database target. Let's click on that. And if we go to notification, we will not be able to see anything here. The reason is we have created some incident rules in the last tutorial, and those incident rules cover only database targets, not the database hosts. So even if this particular issue happened, that a dump file count has crossed our threshold, it's not going to create any incident because there is no actual incident happen. So we are not going to get any alert because our rule set is not designed to accept this kind of events and send an alert. If we want, we can still do that by modifying the incident rules and add the database host targets to the rules. And I am leaving that to you as an exercise. If you are unable to do that, please put a comment below and I will explain how to do that. But the metric extension is working as expected. We are now 100% sure about that. Now I'll show you how we can create a modified version or upgrade to an existing metric extension. To do that, go to Enterprise, Monitoring, then the metric extensions. And say we are going to modify this app account lock check, this metric extension, and we will modify it to create the version number 2. To do that, select the metric extension and then click on the Actions menu, then create next version. And say everything else remains the same and we just want to modify the SQL query so that this time we want to cover some more accounts, not just the system account, and we'll modify it something like where the username in system and say some ABCD. Make sure that the SQL query works and it is error free. Now, as we modified our SQL query and it is now covering 2 accounts in the database, and it will check whether any of these accounts are locked. So we'll click next. The same column will work here. I will show you simply by selecting the column and clicking on the edit button here. And here everything else will work because the logic that we have put there is greater than, and if both the accounts are locked, the value returned by the query will be 2. Even if we put multiple accounts to check and the query returns any number like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this logic is going to work. All it checks is a non-zero number. So we'll cancel it because we are not modifying it. Click next again, and click next again, and then finish. And now we should be able to see a second version of the metric extension named app account lock check is available, but it is not deployed on any targets. But before we can deploy, again we have to follow the same process, that we have to first save it as a deployable draft, and then we have to publish it. Now we see that the deploy to targets option is enabled. But we have another way to deploy it. Say we want to deploy it to the targets only where the version 1 of the metric extension was deployed. So there's an easier way to do that. And if we see, the version 1 was deployed on only one target, and we can click on that one and we see that our ORCL1 database target is there. To upgrade the version of the metric extension, we will select the line for the database target that we want to upgrade, and then click on the upgrade button here. And once you click on this yes button, the selected metric extension on the target will be upgraded automatically. We'll click no here and we will go back to the previous page. Now suppose you want to keep this version 1 with all the existing databases, but you want to apply this version 2 of the metric extension to all the new database targets which are going to be promoted in our OEM system in the future. So how to do that automatically? To do that, we have to associate this version 2 of the metric extension to the default monitoring template of our database targets. Now how to do that? So we will go to Enterprise menu again, under that Monitoring, and under that Monitoring Templates. and say we have a default monitoring template named MyDB template. We can see with this particular icon at the beginning of the name, which says that it's the default monitoring template. So we'll select that, and then we will click on the edit button, and we'll go to the second tab that says the metric thresholds, and we will view the metric with thresholds only, so that this list becomes a little shorter instead of displaying everything. Then we will click on this add metric to template button, and we have the option here to charge for target, template, and metric extension. And then we will select this metric extensions option here, and that will give us all the metric extensions which are available for us to be added to this monitoring template. And now you can see that the app account log check, this particular metric extension with version 2, is available for us to add to the monitoring template. And if we then check this checkbox and then click continue, and then we see that the app account log check version 2 is now associated with the MyDB template, which is the default monitoring template for our database targets. Now click OK, which will take a couple of seconds, and that monitoring template has been successfully updated. Now whatever database targets will be newly promoted and added to our OEM system will be applied with this MyDB template, which is the default monitoring template, and through which the metric extension to check the application account log issue will also be automatically deployed. If you want, you can still apply the version 2 on the existing database targets by simply selecting this monitoring template and then click on the apply button to apply on the database targets which are currently available on our OEM system. And with this, I am concluding today's tutorial. So viewers, please provide your feedback in the comment section of the video and hit the like button if you found it useful. That will mean a lot to me and help grow this channel.